What's up, guys? Just gonna do a little quick basic Luigi fireballs tips and just sort of angles and things to try out on your own here. Pretty basic stuff, but you know there will be a couple little things you might not have used before or thought about at least. So obviously you have Luigi's fireball on the ground. The stuff we're going to be looking at mainly is the different heights and different sort of neutral game-ish type stuff you can do with the fireballs. I feel like I don't see a lot of people use fireballs either enough or at all really with Luigi. Granted, not a lot of people play them and usually only in friendlies and stuff, but even when I do, I just feel like people don't use them enough. Now that's not to say that all the things I'm going to be showing today are things that you can just always spam and do. Obviously, fireballs can be punished, just like in every other fighting game. You have to use them properly, or you have to, use them with the thought that this is risk, but, that's what you have to do when you use projectiles. So, to start off here, just going to be doing the fireball to the top platform here. Pretty simple. Just full hop fireball. I'm pressing the fireball B button right away, and that's kind of the height you get. You can delay it a little, and it'll be a little bit higher. Nothing crazy here. Pretty simple stuff. I mean, the only tip here to work with is that you can sort of fade after this fireball, right? So you don't have to land on the top platform if you want to. You can fade. You can fade to the both directions. You can also kind of fade in between the platforms after you do the top one and come down with an aerial or another fireball, whatever you want to do, right? That way you're sort of covering both the left platforms here and maybe stopping them from trying to go to the very top platform when you do that. So that's kind of a basic setup there. The other stuff with the top platform is if you try to come down right away, fast fall and fireball. Fast fall, turn around fireball. You're always going to have this fireball no matter how early you hit it. As long as you're doing a fast fall, it's going to be landing under the side platforms. Now, obviously, if you slow fall, you can do fireballs at all sorts of different angles and heights. That's the kind of thing that you have to mess around on your own. Okay, so let's say the Pikachu is at the top platform, like Pikachu is right now, and you're on this side platform. You're thinking or afraid that Pikachu's about to come down on top of you, maybe, or they're sort of feigning like they're going to. You can run off to the right side of the platform, and if you do so immediately and turn around fireball, you get an angle like that. It's a pretty good angle. The reason why it's a pretty good angle, if you do it early enough. You could do it both ways, obviously, too, but to the right's not really going to be as useful. And it'll kind of cover you as you're on your way down here. Sort of protect you, give that little extra layer. Also, if they're already on the side platform where you are, and you do this, if you do it early enough. Oh, I'm off. There we go. If you do it early enough, you'll hit their toes. Like that, which is a nice little way, because it also covers below if they're going to sort of try to drop through and do an aerial or something. It'll also hit them as long as they don't, do an aerial that's going to cancel out the fireball. That's something you always have to keep in mind. There's a lot of aerials that cancel out fireballs. So, that's another little trick, doing that instant side fireball as you run off the platform. Obviously, you can also wait and do a fireball as you run off the side platform. So, the last sort of setup is kind of, we've done the full hop, right? We've done some platform stuff. Now there's obviously the short hop fireball. Now this is always going to be right at the side platform height. It's a nice little useful height. You can mix that up obviously with all the sorts of different heights you're doing and the ground ones. The thing you can do though is if you delay this, you can sort of do this double fireball maneuver, kind of like how we were doing when if you do the full hop fireball and then come down with another one, except instead it's at this nicer height. Now the other point is, you see how that fireball hit Pikachu on that second fireball? That's because you have to delay the second one that I do on the way down. If you do it too early, right, you see how it goes right over. Now, the thing with that is, you'll have a little bit less lag if you do the earlier fireball. But, you know, it's not going to hit the height, so that's going to be depending on what your opponent is, what character they are. So, there's all these sorts of heights. You see, if I'm doing these two really early ones, I was getting some pretty high heights even on the second one. If you do the late one, you'll get that late one. Now, obviously, these fireballs that I'm doing, this first one where I'm sort of just jumping right towards Pikachu doing the first fireball, that's definitely risky. You know, if they're right here, they can just do an aerial that eats through both the fireball and still hits you. There's definitely tons of aerials that can do that. Pikachu's back air is a good one. Yoshi's forward air will eat right through this fireball and hit you, spike you into the ground, and then you'll get bodied. So yeah, I think that's sort of the main stuff. The last thing I wanted to mention was just something to keep in mind that I gotta do a different camera here. Close up. So if you do a dash, you'll always sort of get around this area. Now, the point I'm trying to make here is if you do a fireball to interrupt your dash, it'll interrupt your dash and end it earlier. You'll be in a different spot. You see, that's without it. Let's go to the other side without Wispy. You can see the camera angle's leaving me in a slightly different spot if I'm doing this fireball to cancel the dash. So nothing, you know, too crazy. You're not something that's gonna be in your mind to sort of mess around with all the time, but it is something to keep in mind. The other thing you can do, just as an aside to doing this double fireball, this is sort of the bread and butter of the fireball, neutral fireball stuff. And obviously you can change this up because, you know, you can do this first fireball, come down with an aerial instead of a second fireball. You can sort of just, you know, if they're gonna be trying to anticipate you doing this first fireball, all of a sudden you're instead doing an up air, getting an up air chain combo, you know, to the up B, all that good stuff. And then, you know, there's the third, which is you just empty hop and then come down with, you know, a fireball or an aerial. That's the whole point of doing these double fireballs, is to sort of make it so your opponent has to kind of guess what you're doing. If you're just doing these fireballs on the ground, or you're just doing, you know, fireballs right from the side platform, running off doing some, right? Just doing one fireball, it's useful still because it's a projectile, but the advantage of the double fireball is that it allows you to keep your opponent guessing, and it covers more area, obviously, because there's two. So, just a couple of things to keep in mind next time you're playing Luigi. I do have other fireball stuff in mind, but I think I'm going to save that for the next video because it's mostly about edge guard type fireballs and fireballs when you're recovering and when you're edge guarding. So I'll save that for the next one. But I figured I would just start with some simple stuff, keep the videos on the shorter side, and yeah, I'll see you next time.